Honourable and Right Honourable Members of Parliament, Mr Government Spokesman, I think the Ambassador is on his way, Epiliviadis, but I will welcome in his absence, dear friends and colleagues. Welcome to this evening's annual Cyprus meeting and reception. It is a pleasure to see so many parliamentarians and friends of Cyprus here with us this evening. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Sir Roger on his recent re-election as chairman of the APPG. And all the other vice presidents, treasurer, secretary, and other officers of the APPG. Despite the best efforts and concessions of President Anastasiadis in Crans-Montana more than a year ago, the negotiations did not result in the much sought-after solution for the benefit of all Cypriots. However, the recent appointment of Jane Hollutt to conduct consultations has raised hopes that negotiations will once again resume. On the 44th anniversary of the illegal Turkish invasion and continuing occupation, the issue remains unresolved, and we, as UK Cypriots, are gathered here in our Parliament, pledging our unwavering commitment to ensure that our island is finally reunited. What we're asking for is both fair and simple. A just solution based on the relevant UN Security Council resolutions and high-level agreements, a fully functioning state that is in line with the rule of law and free from foreign interference. Put simply, a normal state, as the UN Secretary-General said, and a position that I'm very grateful to our friends in Parliament for supporting. We live in challenging times. Through a period of regional civil unrest and instability, Cyprus has remained a beacon of stability, hope, and prosperity in the Middle East. Cyprus has signed energy agreements with international conglomerates for the exploration and exploitation of hydrocarbons, weathered the global financial crisis, and continues to attract business and investment. Unfortunately, though, Turkey continues to meddle in Cyprus's affairs. Earlier this year, Turkish warships were illegally deployed into Cyprus's EEZ to prevent the Italian energy company ENI from conducting exploration work. Our community was quick to respond, and within 2 weeks, 3,000 emails were sent to the Foreign Office calling on the government to take a stand against Turkey's illegal actions. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank Sir Alan Duncan, the Minister for Europe, for confirming the UK government's support for exploration to go ahead. I'd also like to thank Fabian on behalf of the Labour Party, Sir Roger on behalf of the APPG, and all the other individual parliamentarians, many of whom are here tonight, for issuing statements condemning Turkey's actions in the EEZ. President Erdogan has now succeeded in strengthening his powers in Turkey. And whilst it's no secret that President Erdogan might have secured 50% of the vote, the other 50% demand more freedom, more democracy, and more respect for human rights. Nevertheless, it is our hope that following his re-election, President Erdogan will demonstrate greater flexibility on the key issues of security, guarantees, and troops. At this point in time, the Prime Minister, government, and indeed our parliamentary friends have a unique opportunity to leverage the strategic and evolving relationship that our country has with Turkey to press for the abolition of the anachronistic system of guarantees with unilateral intervention rights and the removal of Turkish troops and all other troops from the Republic of Cyprus. As it became evident from the negotiations in Crans-Montana, despite President Anastasiadis' comprehensive proposals on the areas of territory, governance, property, and his acceptance of the Gutierrez framework, the Turkish government reiterated that it was not willing to make sufficient concessions on the crucial issue of security and guarantees. Our UK Cypriot community is clear that Turkey's unacceptable demands on these issues and its influence in Cyprus must come to an end. As members of Parliament in one of the most powerful and influential nations in the world, your position enables you to make a real and lasting change to the lives not only of your constituents and the 300,000 UK Cypriots, but also an entire population that is asking for peace, justice, and the restoration of human rights. In the face of an increasingly intransigent Turkey, now is the time for all Cypriots, whether they're Greek Cypriot, Turkish Cypriot, Maronite, Latin, or Armenian, to ensure that our demands for a truly independent and sovereign Republic of Cyprus are heard loud and clear. Thank you very much. Sir Roger Gale, Chair of the APPG.
Thank you very much indeed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us when there are other distractions outside, I gather. Before I say what I want to say, I want to pay tribute to somebody who, as a young man in 1974, spent a considerable amount of time at some personal risk documenting in photographs the aftermath of the invasion. I'm referring to him, Doros Pardasides. I'm going to take a huge risk. There are very few copies of this book. I happen to be privileged to be the owner of one of them because Doris gave it to me. But I'm conscious of the fact that it's something that ought to be shared, and I don't suppose there are many people in this room who've ever seen it. Photographs in it are quite astonishing. So what I'm going to do now is I take the risk and pass it round. Please don't spend all evening looking at it because there are a lot of people who probably want to have a look at it. We'll start with you, Christos, and you can pedal it round. But I do want it back. I think Doris said there are only about 6 copies of it in the world, and I'm very privileged and very honoured to be the owner of one of them. During the past year, we have had a significant number of meetings. We've had tremendous support, I should say, first of all, from your High Commissioner in London. He is a good friend. He's given tremendous support to the All-Party Group. He's a tremendous ambassador for your cause, and without his assistance, such that we have been able to achieve, we could not have achieved. I'd also like to join Christos in paying tribute to Sir Alan Duncan, the Minister of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office here in London, who again has been immensely supportive. I think it is probably fair to say that Sir Alan devotes a disproportionate amount of time to the Cyprus issue, when you consider that he has, as far as I can see, most of the rest of the world in his ministerial brief. It is a quite extraordinary tour de force, and again, we're very grateful to Alan. And of course, I am grateful for the support of my parliamentary colleagues right across the House. We have never, in the getting on for 35 years now that I've been involved in the Cyprus issue on your behalf, there was a time when I had hair and less weight as well. It has never been a party political issue so far as we are concerned, and as long as I am the chairman of the All-Party Group, it will not be. I think it is absolutely vital that we don't play party politics with your country, that we take a collegiate and non-partisan approach, and if we pull together, then of course we can achieve a great deal more than if we pull apart. Something that 1 or 2 other people in high places might want to take on board. We have visited the island. I'm ashamed to say that as a proud citizen of Morphu, I have not been able to visit the island and attend the Morphu rally for the last 3 years. And the reason for that is because the rally, the march towards Morphu, the wreath-laying ceremony, and the rest of the events that take place over that weekend happen to clash now with the plenary session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. And for my sins, I lead the British delegation to that Parliamentary Assembly. But of course, that in itself is also a plus, because it means that I am able to make significant contact with our Cypriot friends and on your behalf with others within the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. And I'd like to pay tribute to Stella Kyriakidis, who for the last 3 months of last year was the President of the Parliamentary Assembly. She took over following the suspension of Pedro Agramunt, and she did a sterling job. And it's a huge sadness, actually, that she was, because of the nature of the term of office, only allowed to serve 3 months. In that 3 months, she did a brilliant job, and those of you who are members of the Cypriot community, can be very proud of the work that Stella did, again, on your behalf. Looking forward, which we must, It is 44 years, very soon, since the invasion. I remember it very well indeed because I was a young journalist working in the offices of BBC Radio London at the time, and I watched with horror the reports of the invasion. And I've effectively lived with that ever since. I regard myself as having failed in my own task because I promised the late, great George Gerolamo that I would get his house back for him. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but that won't stop us from going on trying. There are many of you who are dispossessed, many of you who want to be able to go back freely to meet family, to meet friends, to meet Turkish Cypriot friends, actually, as well. But most importantly, to have free access to the entirety of your island. And I and my parliamentary colleagues will continue to work for that. That's all I want to say to you. I'd now like to introduce the government spokesman, Mr. Prodromos, who will say a few words, and after that we shall hear, I think, from our own minister, Lord Ahmed. So, without further ado, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sir Roger. Minister, honourable members of Parliament, dear Christos, ladies and gentlemen, dear compatriots, if I'm allowed to say, British compatriots, British Cypriot compatriots, I'm very glad and honoured being here today, and I want to thank the Association of Cypriots as well as the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Cyprus. First of all, I have to admit that we are here in the middle of serious developments concerning the United Kingdom, developments concerning Brexit. I will just make two short remarks on this question, hoping that there is still some room to think about Cyprus. First of all, we are interested in Cyprus because we consider that even with the decision of the British citizens to leave the European Union, the United Kingdom is and shall remain an important partner for Europe, for Europe and the European Union. So it is our interest to have a proper agreement between the United Kingdom and the European Union and to avoid the no-deal scenario. At the same time, we need to have a deal concerning the special interest of the Republic of Cyprus, because it is well known that we have British areas in Cyprus and we want to find a way to protect the rights, to keep the same rights to people living or working inside the British areas. I believe it is possible because the negotiations are going well. We do have developments, also an important development for Cyprus. The appointment by the Secretary General of the United Nations of the diplomat, Mrs. Jane Hall-Lute, as his special envoy in order to have in-depth consultations with all parties in order to find out whether there is room and how will be conducted a new initiative, negotiations about the Cyprus issue. From the first moment, 1 year ago, when there was the unfortunate deadlock in Crans-Montana in the Conference on Cyprus, UN Conference on Cyprus, President Anastasiadis was clear. We asked to restart the negotiations from where we left it, and to consider as given the framework proposed by the Secretary General. Why? Because it was an important development in the history of the negotiations. Unfortunately, there is a history of 44 years from the moment that Turkey invaded Cyprus, but it was a very important development that, for the first time, we went to the hardcore of the Cyprus issue, the question of security. And Mr. Guterres proposed 6 parameters, and especially amongst them, all are important, but for us it was very important that the United Nations were proposing to give a new system of security, because the obsolete system of the 1960s, the system that was used by Turkey to invade Cyprus as a pretext, could not accompany an agreement for a federal Republic of Cyprus. At the same time, we want to be sure that we will have an agreement with the withdrawal of the Turkish troops with the solution. Because we believe that Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, we can find our way with a compromise in a federal Cyprus organized according to the international law, the decisions and the resolutions of the United Nations and the rules of the European Union, because Cyprus will always be member of the European Union, and as such can propose a very good deal about the security of all the Cypriots, whether Turkish Cypriots or Greek Cypriots, without having the control of a third country like Turkey. I will limit my remarks, being at your disposal to discuss further later, in order to give the opportunity to have the other friends here to have their interventions. I just want to say again thank you for your presence and for the invitation, and to talking on behalf of the President of the Republic to assure you that he will do his best in this new opportunity. We are ready to negotiate, and we hope that the other side, and especially Turkey, more than the Turkish Cypriots, will be ready to deliver this time and not to have the same attitude as in Grand Montana when Turkey was asking about the continuation of the guarantees and the military base in Cyprus. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We are very fortunate indeed in having the Minister of State for the Commonwealth, Lord Ahmed, here with us this evening. You'll appreciate there's an enormous amount going on in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office at the moment, not least the appointment of the new Secretary of State, which is no doubt taking up a little bit of time and attention. But Lord Ahmed, would you like to come up here, please, and address everybody?
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Sir Roger, and to you, Christos, as well, for inviting me here this evening. As Sir Roger said, there are a few things which are keeping us busy at the moment. I must admit, as a Foreign Office Minister, that's probably true of any day. But the challenges of a brief as extensive as many of us carry, as Sir Roger said, in Sir Alan's case, or indeed with myself, where I cover, I'm greatly honoured to be the Minister of State for the Commonwealth, the United Nations, human rights, security, and the list carries on. But in doing so, it underlines the importance on both thematic priorities that Her Majesty's government attaches to our relationships across the world, and also the importance of organisations on a multilateral basis, both through the United Nations and the Commonwealth. Therefore, I was delighted, due to the fact that Sir Alan is currently hosting, indeed I've just returned from the West Balkan Summit. Some of you may well know that's currently being hosted, and his role was very significant because as I left the meeting, he was accompanying the Prince of Wales in various important introductions. But I know he will want me to send his best wishes. And as you know, we have a new Foreign Secretary, and on his behalf as well, I extend best wishes to both the APPG and all of you present here today. I'm particularly grateful to the National Federation of Cypriots and the APPG for all you do in strengthening the bilateral relations between the United Kingdom and Cyprus, as well as many personal friendships and family connections that bind our countries. We also enjoy a wealth of cultural, economic, and institutional ties, which have grown even stronger, I would argue, most passionately in recent years. As we leave the European Union, let me assure you the United Kingdom government is absolutely determined to strengthen these bonds even further. They're not bound by our membership of the European Union. They go far deeper, building on shared values and the strengths of common legal systems. And as the Minister of State for the Commonwealth, the importance that we share on the growing role and strength of the Commonwealth and its membership. Let me assure you, we will continue to be natural partners in the field of defence and security, and I will come on to that in a moment. And we have demonstrated with the renewal of our bilateral defence cooperation programme in Cyprus last month. I was delighted that our two respective defence ministers were able to join together for that particular event. And on that particular issue, this year's programme includes collaboration on crisis response, search and rescue, and professional education and training. And I'm sure there is much scope to broaden our collaboration in the years ahead. Now, those who know me and those who were involved with the Commonwealth Summit, and thank you also, I know, Christos, for taking part during the summit itself. I have a great passion for the depth of what binds the 53 nations of the Commonwealth together. Common legal systems, common ties of culture, common values that we share. And that came to the fore very much as we were delighted and honoured to host the Commonwealth Summit in April this year. I was delighted that from Cyprus, both the President and indeed the Foreign Minister, who I had occasion to meet on several occasions during the summit, were able not just to attend, but also had valuable bilateral talks with both the Prime Minister, Mrs. May, and my colleague, Sir Alan Duncan, as Minister for Europe. Christoph, as I said, I'm very grateful for you for taking part in the summit, in particular, the importance of the diaspora communities. The British Cypriot community is extremely vital. It's the vibrance of what defines our bilateral relationship. We had a productive week in the summit. We had nice weather, that's always good. We seem to throw on pretty decent weather nowadays whenever we host international summits. And as Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon, it's pleasing that so far, touch wood, I'm sure this is genuine wood, we haven't had the fortnight of Wimbledon tennis disturbed either. But the importance was the discussions that took place. We had a productive week, yes, but the importance of that work is underlined about the nature of what is taken forward in terms of the outcomes of the Commonwealth Summit. And as Chair in office, the United Kingdom will be looking to build our discussions and Cyprus's work in the same role towards a fairer, more secure, more prosperous and sustainable future for all citizens of the Commonwealth. I would also like to add my words of tribute and recognition to my good friend, the High Commissioner. I can't see him, is he? He's not here at the moment.
I think he's on his way.
He's in his way. I'm sure when the High Commissioner, knowing the High Commissioner, when he enters, we will all know. I can assure you he was someone with whom I share many common thoughts, and I was absolutely delighted that we saw him actually being elected to the Board of Governors as its chair in what we will see as a very important period for the Commonwealth as a whole. So Roger mentioned about the Cypriot and the Cyprus settlement. Our view remains that a just, democratic and lasting settlement in Cyprus based on the internationally accepted model of a bizonal, bicommunal federation remains the absolute objective of our role as the British government. And let me assure you all, we will continue to support all of you working towards that goal. To be honest and candid, the failure to reach an agreement in Crans Montana last year was a great disappointment, I'm sure, for all. But we should take heart and hope that there was real progress made during the talks. Thanks, and I pay tribute to the remarkable courage and commitment of the leaders, and from the fact that parties came even closer to an agreement than ever before. I also welcome, as the Minister for the United Nations, the UN's recent decision to appoint Jane Hull-Lute to lead consultations with the parties on the way forward. I know Jane Hull-Lute. I've worked with her on various initiatives at the United Nations, and I believe she'll be a very powerful asset to the discussions which are being held. And I think it is important to seize the opportunity to rebuild that momentum now towards that settlement in coming weeks and months. It's important for Cyprus. It's important for all the citizens of Cyprus. It's important for each and every one of us in this room this evening. It's important for Europe, the wider region as well, and it's very important for the future generations to come. A settlement, I fully accept, will require tough choices and compromises, but it will bring benefits to all Cypriots and the wider region. And with genuine political will, building on the progress that I myself have seen, which has already been made, and I pay tribute to all those who were involved with that particular negotiations. An agreement, I believe, remains very much within reach. I talked about tough choices and compromises. I come finally to an issue which some of you may have heard about. It says on my briefing here, Brexit. Well, I can assure you that we will address head-on the concerns that I know some of you have had about the UK's departure from the European Union, but particularly about your own future here in the UK. Let me assure you, as Mrs. May, the Prime Minister, emphasised in her Florence speech last September, we are extremely proud and we are deeply grateful to EU citizens who have made their lives in the UK and contributed to our country. We want you to stay. Perhaps that message is even more poignant from someone himself who is a son of a migrant from that fabulous network of countries from the Commonwealth. As someone whose parents first arrived in the early 50s from India, I know how important the contributions are of migrant communities that make Britain their home, how far they're valued, how far they're cherished. But equally, I pay tribute to our country, our nation, the United Kingdom, which not only values that, but as we see in all walks of life, different people from different communities, from different origins, from different parts of the world, who make Britain their hope, are today contributing in all aspects of British life. I also hope that last month's diaspora event, which was jointly organised by the Foreign Office and DEXU, provided some assurances. And also, I'm delighted that my friend and colleague Sajid Davaid, the Home Secretary, has already outlined that his aim is to make the process to enable EU citizens and their families to obtain settled status in the UK both quick and straightforward. The Home Office will be providing further details in this respect very soon. Let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to address your concerns as best we can, including with further outreach events, and I look forward to working with all organisations in this respect to see how we can deepen that connection and communication further. But finally, may I say that the government, our Prime Minister, and I know I speak from all colleagues within the British government, we value enormously the Cypriot community in the United Kingdom. And I hope that British citizens will continue to also be a valued part of society in Cyprus too. I am deeply confident that our bilateral relations will go from strength to strength, and that we will continue to remain close partners for many generations to come. I'm delighted to have had the opportunity, notwithstanding certain challenges of time, to share some of my thoughts with you here this evening. But in doing so, I leave you with the final message that the government of the United Kingdom remains very committed to ensuring the values, the opportunities, that the future for all citizens across the beautiful island of Cyprus is something that we are fully committed to. Thank you.
you'll understand, I'm sure, that the Minister of State has the dreaded red box and various other ministerial things that he has to attend to. So I hope you'll allow me to say thank you on your behalf and to excuse all that. Thank you very much. Engagement that he has to go to as well.
Afraid so.
Floor's yours.
Thank you very much, Sir Roger, and thank you for inviting me to speak this evening. I'm the Shadow Minister for Peace and Disarmament, which is a strange role because it doesn't actually exist in the British government. But I also have Foreign Office responsibilities for North Africa and the Middle East, but also all areas of conflict which need resolving. It's just a small brief, really. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I'll try and be brief. It was very good to hear from Lord Ahmed and from the government spokesman, Mr. Prodromos Prodromou, who I met in Cyprus back in April. Sir Roger, my involvement with Cyprus goes back 44 years to the time when I was a student here in London, studying to retake an A-level in central London, where most of my classmates were Cypriots, Greek Cypriots, in fact. And that summer, they went back to Nicosia and to the various towns and villages that they came from for the summer holiday. And of course, you don't need me to remind you what happened, because as with you, Sir Roger, it's firmly stuck in my mind and in my heart, the terrible things that happened that year. Now, my friend Nick Loizu, who I want to remember this evening, was just 19 years old when he joined up to fight the Turkish invasion and was tragically killed by a tank shell. And I've never forgotten that. It was 44 years ago, and he's remained forever in my mind and my thoughts, and I've been going to Cyprus ever since. That's why I have that involvement. So many of us in this country have that involvement. We're not Cypriots, but we love Cyprus, and we love it for a good reason. I just want to acknowledge my very good friends that are here this evening. Joan Ryan, who does so much in her constituency and here in Parliament for her Cypriot constituents. They're such an important part for her. Catherine West, sitting behind me, with whom I worked on the Foreign Office team until she left the team to fight Brexit, and quite right she is too in many ways, but we miss her. Where is she? Teresa Villiers, who I know also has a strong constituency interest and of course was Northern Ireland Secretary. Bambus Kalalambus, who joined us just last year, and I think I'm right in saying, Bambus, you're the first Cypriot to become a member of this Parliament. Is that correct? And it's wonderful that you are. Lord Collins of Highbury, who's just left us, who is a current member of the Foreign Office team and speaks for us as shadow member of that team in the House of Lords on virtually everything, including international development. And this evening, I know High Commissioner Euripides Evriviadis is not yet with us, but he's somebody who's made his presence really known, not just amongst Cypriots here in London, but actually amongst Cypriots throughout the whole UK, but actually amongst the whole diplomatic community. I was with all the Arab ambassadors last night, and they all talked about Euripides Evriviadis. He's done a great job for Cyprus. He's done a great job for the diplomatic community, and I thank him for that. Now, as has been said this evening, security for Cyprus must, I believe, be through its membership of the European Union, not through old-fashioned concepts of guarantees which come out of the 20th century and are certainly not appropriate for this century or for modern Europe. As we leave the EU in this country, and many of us are very much opposed to that, we want to see Cyprus being reunited together for all Cypriots and its security guaranteed not by foreign troops on the island, not by Turkish troops being there, but actually by the European Union of which it's a proud member. Wouldn't it be good also for Turkey to hear Turkish being one of the official languages of the European Union once the island is reunited? So the Labour Party strongly supports all moves to reunite Cyprus on a bizonal, bicommunal, federal model that has been discussed at Crans-Montana, which I hope those talks will resume, and the government spokesman, I had met with him earlier, really did reassure us of that. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. We believe Cyprus should be a sovereign, independent nation with no foreign troops, except by the agreement of the people and the government of Cyprus. And I want to also bring you greetings from my colleague Khalid Mahmoud, our Shadow Europe Minister, who had to leave early, and of course our Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry, who was supposed to be here tonight, but is going to be doing Prime Minister's questions tomorrow, so I think she's preparing for that right now. She sends her warmest affection and greetings to all of you. She wishes she could be with you. Cyprus is forever in our hearts. We will work with all of you, with the British government, with all parties, as Sir Roger said, to ensure that that aim is achieved and Cyprus is free and united once more. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thanks very much. Again, you'll understand that these are busy people. Fabian has to go. But thank you for being with us. I'm now going to call and then allow also to go, if you don't mind, Joan Ryan. Joan's been in Israel and got back today. Apparently she wants to go and see her husband, so and shake hands with him, but she wanted to speak to you first. So, Joan, the floor is yours.
I'm told he wants to see me as well, so... And I would pay tribute to our chair, Sir Roger, who is absolutely right about the way in which we have to work together and do work together as a collective, and we achieve more by that common endeavour than we would achieve alone. Can I just say a word, first of all, about Enfield and the Cypriot community? The Cypriot community in Enfield continues to be central to the life of Enfield. The members of the community are incredibly active in our voluntary sector, in working with others on a voluntary basis to support community groups, to support social care, to support all kinds of activities with young people that make such a significant difference to the cohesion of our communities and the strength of our communities. And not just within their own community, but the contribution to the wider community. We're very pleased to have managed to have somehow grasped from Alexander Palace and Catherine's constituency the Cypriot Wine Festival.
Only for a year. We're getting it back.
No, we're not. We're not being collegiate on that one. But it's been fantastic for the last couple of years at Lee Valley, and we very much hope to continue to welcome it. And the other reason why the community is so strong is because it is so family orientated. And we have had some issues in Enfield, and we've had a very significant rise in violent crime. And we've seen a significant concern about gangs and gang culture. So having strong communities really involved in the wider community, based on very strong family values, is an important way in which we move forward to tackle some of these problems. And I know in Enfield, our Cypriot community are very proud to be British and very proud of their Cypriot heritage, and that's to be welcomed. I would say our young Cypriots are very much a credit to their community, and we want to encourage their example amongst all of our young people. I know we've appreciated the briefing we've had from the government spokesman this evening, and we know that President Erdogan arrived in the north of Cyprus today, and that for many there, they will feel some trepidation at that arrival, and some concern at some of the demographic change that they see, and whether any of this will signal a change in the culture and life of such a strong, secular, democratic nature that the Turkish Cypriot people have. Obviously, we hope that is not the case. But you, like I, must have seen the events in Turkey, and you know that there has been a slide towards authoritarianism, that we take no great hope out of these recent elections, the executive presidency, but we do take some hope out of the fact that the parliamentary elections did not deliver a majority. So the population in Turkey face a threat to their democracy when we have seen progress there for quite some years, progress that was very welcome. So I think we're right to keep a very weather eye on what is happening between the relationship between Turkey and the north of Cyprus. And we're right to have some concerns, but I hope that the visit will signal that he's going to support Mr. Ackinger, who I do believe is committed to finding a way forward. Like other people here tonight, I absolutely want to support a bizonal, bicommunal, federal, sovereign Cyprus. That's what we want to see. I'm pleased that the UN Secretary-General's Special Representative, Elizabeth Speha, says there are important weeks that lie ahead, that the two sides now prepare for the arrival of Jane Hall-Lute, and that she will determine whether there are grounds for the resumption of reunification talks. We want to see those talks. Having a process is so important. We all hope for the very best of outcomes, but without a process, there's no chance of that outcome. And I believe both Greek and Turkish Cypriots want that solution. And I also believe that however difficult it is, however long it takes, that populations never give up on their desire for self-determination, for a unified island. And therefore I am hopeful that we will see these talks happen again and that we will see a solution come from those talks. And I'm also very pleased that, although unofficial, UN Secretary-General report on the United Nations force in Cyprus proposes a renewal of the mandate for a further 6 months. I think that's a positive sign. And the final thing I wanted to mention is the civil society role in Cyprus, because I believe civil society activity builds constituencies for peace and strengthens those constituencies when a solution is forthcoming. Because peace is a process, and even when there's an agreement, the process is difficult to keep on track. We've seen that in Northern Ireland. So the trade unions, different political parties, women's groups, businesses, educators are all promoting bizonal, bicommunal activity that will lay the foundations for peace. Peace takes both a political, an economic and a civil strand. And so I would like to particularly encourage the activities of civil society, and we should never underestimate how important it is. And their example shows us that communities in Cyprus can live together, want to live together, can work together, and will work for that peace. It needs to be by Cypriots for Cypriots, not by President Erdogan, not by the UK, not by Greece, not by Turkey itself, but all of us need to do everything we can. It's our duty to do all we can to facilitate, support, encourage and enable peace. I hope that this coming year, that before we sit here again for our next AGM, that by that time we have something much more positive ahead of us and ahead of Cyprus. Thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Sir Roger, for that very kind introduction and pay tribute to you for all you do for Cyprus, including the important task of chairing the APPG. And I'm delighted that you've been persuaded to take that on for another year. And I'd also like to thank Christos and the Federation for organising this event and bringing so many of you here today to talk about an issue which is close to your hearts and close to ours. As we sit here next door to this magnificent Westminster Hall, which has been in the city for over 900 years, you know, I think it's a historic place to discuss the importance of finding a settlement in Cyprus. For around 18 or so years, I've been campaigning for a free and united Cyprus. I believe that it is a huge injustice that Turkish troops remain in Cyprus 44 years after that cruel and terrible invasion. And I think it is high time those troops were removed from Cyprus so that Cypriots once again can determine their own future and live together on their own island. And reflecting before coming here this afternoon on the last 12 months since we were last gathered here to make the case for a united Cyprus, I've just been thinking about, and what I want to emphasise is that I'm fighting for your cause every day. I have had the chance to raise Cyprus with the Prime Minister during Prime Minister's questions because I think it is vital that we keep this issue on the agenda for the UK government, to encourage them to do all they can to support Cypriots in that long search for a lasting, just and peaceful settlement. And in Foreign Office questions, I've very often raised Cypriot matters. Not least, I was one of the MPs who spoke out against third country guarantees. They are a relic of a colonial era. They are not justified in relation to a modern European democracy. And I thank the Federation for the meeting I had to prompt me to ask that question. I think they are absolutely right to say that there is no place for third country guarantees in a settlement in Cyprus to determine its future. And I also had the chance to protest in Parliament about the incursion by Turkish warships in the Eastern Mediterranean, which was totally unjustified, totally unhelpful. And I welcome the statement that was subsequently received from Sir Alan Duncan, which has already been referred to today, that the UK government fully supports the right of the government of Cyprus to exploit its own EEZ. And only recently, I had the chance to question Chris Grayling about flights to the northern part of Cyprus, and he confirmed very clearly to me that there is no change in government policy and that there is no prospect of direct flights to northern Cyprus. And I think also it's important for parliamentarians to be aware of Cypriot issues and Cypriot concerns and Cypriot culture. So I've had the pleasure of hosting Vasilopita cake-cutting ceremonies just a few feet from where we sit now. And it's been a great honour to be able to welcome Archbishop Gregorius to take part in that cake cutting and say the prayers. And of course, although he's not here this evening, I think we should all welcome his 30th year as Archbishop in this city. He does a wonderful job and he is much valued by the community. And the Federation were kind enough to organise a briefing with the new UK High Commissioner to Nicosia. And I and others asked him some tough questions when he was here. And of course, like others, I've had the chance many times to meet with His Excellency Euripides Evryviadis, and he is indeed a force of nature. He has boundless energy, and he's a great, great diplomat and a great representative for the Republic of Cyprus in Britain. And there are many times, of course, when I've been able to attend the Morphu rally to express solidarity with those who lost their homes as a result of the Turkish invasion. And I continue to believe that any sensible and just settlement must ensure that residents of Morphu have the right to return to the homes from which they fled in 1974. And it's also important to make sure that Cypriots can meet UK government ministers directly to put their point of view across. And I was able to, along with Mike Freer, able to arrange a very successful meeting with Sir Alan Duncan to discuss the concerns felt by the community about incursion in the Cyprus EEZ. And of course, it's also been a great pleasure for me to support our wonderful Greek schools in my constituency at Ashmole and the Totteridge Academy, following on from the campaign a few years ago to protect Greek A-level as a vital qualification for those schools and therefore a vital qualification for the Cypriot community in the United Kingdom. If we'd lost that A-level, that could have had a devastating effect on many successful Greek schools, and I think because of the threat to those schools would have really threatened community cohesion in the Cypriot community. And I also very much enjoyed the opportunity to meet representatives of the Committee on Missing Persons when they were in London a few months ago. And I'm very conscious that those who've probably suffered more than anyone else as a result of the invasion of Cyprus and the continuing division are those people who still do not know the fate of their loved ones. And I will always be a passionate supporter of the efforts being made to find answers for those families who for too long have been denied the truth about what happened to their loved ones. And it was also a pleasure to be able to sponsor the exhibition Shorelines of Cyprus with photos from Doros Partisides as a way to illustrate the scenic beauty of Cyprus, and again to raise awareness amongst my colleagues to make sure that we keep Cyprus on the agenda. And most recently of all, just a couple of weeks ago, I had the chance to meet constituents who are exiled from Famagusta, to hear from them the sad story of what they thought was a temporary departure from their homes, only to find that 44 years later, they're still unable to return to those homes and living them as they should. And so I will continue to work every day for a settlement in Cyprus. I will continue to urge the UK government to do whatever it can to support Cypriots in their efforts to deliver a free and united Cyprus. I'm grateful to the government spokesman for coming here to update us and address those key issues, and like him, I think it is vital that we see formal negotiations start again, and I welcome the commitment of the government of Cyprus to doing that. It is a noble goal. I'm sure one day that Cyprus will be reunited, and until it is, I will continue to campaign for that just and balanced and lasting settlement which sees Cypriots living together once again on an island which is a single international personality, a single sovereignty, a single citizenship, with human rights respected. Freedom for Cyprus. Thank you.
Well, I've been an MP for a year now, and it was 12 months ago that I was in this room. We just had the disappointment about the Grants Montana talks, and I just want to tell you a bit about what I've been doing since that time. I went to Cyprus in August of last year. I met some very key people about that, and there was obviously a huge disappointment about the failure of the talks. But I also met some Turkish Cypriots out there who told me that they were worried, that they had an existential crisis. There's only 100,000 Turkish Cypriots in the north, and they're really worried about their future as well. So for them, peace is also very much at the forefront of what they're doing, and I think it's something that we should also remember. I had the chance to meet with the Committee for the Missing Persons. When I first got elected as a councillor in 1994, I received 1,619 votes exactly. Now, for some people, that will be a figure that you'll remember. That's the exact number of missing people that were recorded after the invasion in 1974. And that's why that number is etched in my mind. And that's why we need to do more to try and help find the missing bodies who are... we need to get more information to find out where they are. We need to find out where those graves are, and we need to make sure that those remains are reunited with the loved ones so people know exactly what happened with them. I know that the Committee for the Missing Persons are looking to the records at Kew to actually try and find any field reports as to where there might have been conflicts that have been reported, that they can actually find out where they are. So that's really, really important that we do that. We've also had the chance to meet with the new High Commissioner to Cyprus, Stephen Iffield, who's already started his posting there. He was very kind and generous enough to try and reach out to the community and meet the APPG. So we had a very good discussion with him and told him what we thought the priorities were for Cyprus. And you've heard from the government spokesperson tonight, and also from the Labour side as to what our view is. We need to make sure that we keep the pressure up and we keep sort of putting things to the fore, keeping things to the fore. Make sure that the government are aware about the need for Cyprus. I'm sure they are, but we mustn't sort of hide back on that. I've also been asking questions in the House. I asked a question about the hydrocarbons, about the Turkish warships in the Mediterranean. I previously asked the Prime Minister questions about the Grounds Montana talks. And I'm also looking to... there are other issues that I'm dealing with as well. The issue of torture has come up. Many people... There's a case that's being brought by some lawyers in the Midlands. They're representing over 30 people who were tortured in the 50s, and that case is against the Ministry of Defence, and that's progressing through the courts. So I'm involved in that case. I've just seen, bang on time, the High Commissioner has walked in. So welcome, High Commissioner. I've been spending a lot of time with the High Commissioner. I've been attending many events in the community. I'm lucky enough that many of the associations from the villages that you represent have many of their functions in my constituency of Enfield Southgate. And the High Commissioner is always present at these events and makes sure that he speaks up for Cyprus and is a true representative for you and keeps the pressure on the government. I, like you, have been fighting for a peaceful settlement in Cyprus. I've been going on demonstrations since I was 7 or 8 years old. My dad, who's in the room, would take me on the demonstrations when I was very young. My dad's just sat over there in the back. So he was taking me straight after when there was the invasion. So it was obviously a big issue in my growing up. So it's very much at the fore. But also I want to thank people like Christos and the work that the National Federation of Cypriots have been doing. I've been bombarded with emails about what I'm doing about to help solve the Cyprus cause. And it's not just me, but it's many other MPs. And being a Cypriot MP in Parliament, often they come to me and say, oh, we had this email about Cyprus, what do we do about it? So it's actually been good to actually be able to inform them about the issues in Cyprus. So I'm there as your representative to help sort of progress the issues and educate people and inform things. I've also been working with, I'm there for all the community as well. So I've been working with the Turkish Cypriots that have had their graves and gravestones damaged in a cemetery in Edmonton to try and get justice for them. There's an unscrupulous cemetery owner who's been damaging the graves, and we're trying to get sort of justice for them so they can actually grieve their loved ones as well. Finally, I was working with the High Commissioner about this. I was able to secure some compensation for some Turkish Cypriots who lost land in Cyprus from the Cyprus government. And they've been eternally grateful for having done that. So I'm there for all the community to represent you. I will work with you and I will help you as much as I can to try and bring about a settlement for Cyprus, to keep the pressure on the government. I'm of the community, I'm from you, and I will represent you as much as I can. So please keep the letters and emails coming, please keep the pressure on, and I'll do the best that I can to represent you to the best of my abilities. Thank you for your support, really, really appreciate it. And thanks to the APPG for all the hard work that they do, and Sir Roger and everyone who's spoken tonight.
It is a real pleasure to have Euripides with us, and also it was a fantastic pleasure for me as the MP for Wood Green to welcome not only the High Commissioner but also the Archbishop and a number of other dignitaries and government ministers to the St Barnabas Day celebrations in Wood Green which were fantastic. And I'd love next year, of course, Bambos, your dad, to come as well and enjoy the lovely meal which Tony puts on downstairs afterwards. Tony's put on some lovely food next door as well, working closely with my assistant Natalie to get past the Sergeant at Arms, who is, quite a scary individual when you're trying to park in the yard at the House of Commons. But between Tony and Natalie, they appear to have done it, and I think we've got some refreshments waiting. I was very pleased just an hour ago to be re-elected as the Secretary of the All-Party Group, and it is by working cross-party that we will get our bizonal, bicommunal future for Cyprus. And obviously we know that there are still divisions which sadly exist, but we have some hope that the UN General's Special Representative, Elizabeth Spehar, who said on Friday that important weeks lie ahead for the Cyprus problem as the two sides on the island prepare for the arrival of a UN envoy, Jane Hall-Lute, who will determine whether there are grounds for the resumption of reunification talks. And all parties are working closely together from now so that we don't lose a whole month in August, because we know that sometimes in August you just lose the whole period. But there are consultations so that whatever happened 12 months ago in Crans-Montana can be reflected upon and we can relaunch those discussions. Both leaders, as we know, have indicated that they're up for talks. Mr. Anastasiadis saying that the Greek Cypriot policy is that the talks should resume where we left off. And Mr. Akinci noted that now the Turkish elections are over, and my right honourable friend Joan Ryan mentioned some of the concerns that we as members of Parliament in the UK have about those elections, so I don't need to rehearse those concerns. But now that the elections are over, hopefully the procedure can carry on, but not never-ending without timeframes. Elizabeth Spehar cautions it's up to the UN Secretary-General to see what the next step will be, adding that we have to take one step at a time. And in that journey, we as UK parliamentarians are with the community, not just here, but of course in Cyprus as well, because we all support the process of achieving dialogue between the communities to achieve a settlement that enables people to return to their homes and which makes proper reparation for the injustices of the past. And we know that the foreign troops question can only be decided by agreement by Cypriots themselves. As Mr. Prodromos Prodromou, who we're so pleased to have with us here tonight, has said, we cannot underestimate the difficulties involved and hope that the resumption of the talks will be as quickly as possible, in a spirit of compromise, mutual respect and trust, leading to a sustainable solution to the conflict in Cyprus. And I can assure you that as the Member of Parliament for Hornsey and Wood Green, and yes, I do want the Wines Festival to come back to Alexandra Palace. Put your hand up if you want that, yes. And I can see all the youngsters saying yes, because how many Cypriot couples met when they were teenagers outside Ali Pali when their parents were busy gossiping indoors?
Exactly.
We can't allow that to go to Enfield. That will return to my constituency. And I will ensure you that I will continue to support the community, not just here with the wonderful Susie Constantinidis, who runs our Cypriot Centre. And if you have any funds that you'd like to disperse to a wonderful cause, the Cypriot Centre, which serves our community so well in Wood Green, is there to be helped. And other and promoting the wonderful achievements of our youngsters. We do want peace and justice and human rights, not just in this country, not without thinking about our Brexit discussions, which are upsetting many of us here in Parliament, but looking forward to that future of peace, justice, human rights and freedom. And let's work together for those values which bring us together, as the Minister said, in the spirit of the Commonwealth. We cannot forget that network of nations, but also those values which bring us together, we can have a freer and we can have a system of solidarity. So let's do that together. Let's celebrate the next steps in the peace process as we go next door. But first of all, we have to hear from our party bringer,
Hang on.
Euripides.
Hang on, I've got something to say about
You
it.
have. Okay.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry,
Nice loud voice.
Now, every year in my constituency in Margate, we have a strange ceremony. We take a small Greek Cypriot boy and we throw him into the icy waters of the North Sea and we try and drown him. We haven't succeeded yet, but we keep on trying. You will understand that this is the Feast of the Epiphany and the Blessing of the Seas. It's something that many of you from London used to come to, and it's no good hiving off to Hendon and trying to pretend that river water is the same, because it isn't. So I'd like to see you all back in Margate next year. But one person who braves the wind and, if necessary, the snow and the rain on Margate seafront with us all is your High Commissioner, who without fail joins us to celebrate the blessing of the seas. And it's a huge pleasure for me, personally, to welcome my friend, your High Commissioner.
Sir Roger Gale, I am humbled to the floor because I'm sharing this podium with you and with distinguished all-weather friends, as I say, of Cyprus. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but that's when friends really matter, Teresa. And you know this very well because you have been there for us. And Catherine, and Bambos. Because when the weather is fine, you know what? We have lots of friends. But we want our friends also to be there when the thunder comes and when there are real trials and tribulations. So somebody like Sir Roger, who has been in the forefront for so many years, Teresa and all the others that have named, who am I? I am getting paid to do a job. It happens to be my passion, it happens to be my energy, it happens to be my oxygen, it happens to be my DNA, it happens to be my happiness, it happens to be also my sadness. But I'm getting paid to do it. Good people like what you see in front of you do not get paid. And you, the true ambassadors and the true High Commissioners of Cyprus, that you do generously from your time and from your money for what you consider to be altruism, for the love of your original country, Cyprus, but for the love of your adopted country here as United Kingdom citizens. And what we want in Cyprus, as it has been said time after time after time, is nothing more and nothing less than what is given to other peace-loving people, than what is given to other people that have democracy, human rights, the rule of law. And I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm speaking to an audience, to a country that has Magna Carta for the last 800 years and more. We're not children of a lesser God. We are baked under the same sun as everybody else. Cypriot, of Greek ethnic background, of Turkish ethnic background, Armenians, Maronites, and Latins, all of them proud of their heritage because Cyprus is a quilt. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you, as the golden rule is. I have to apologize for being late, Sir Roger, and distinguished friends and colleagues and distinguished members of Parliament, dear Christos Karaolis. It's not out of disrespect to you that I am late. It's just because here in this great megalopolis and this great metropolis, I feel like a swan, graceful above water, but underneath pedaling like hell. Because, you know, I cannot run fast enough even to stay in the same place doing what has been a labor of love since 1976 when I joined the service, to hold the flag. Because if we do not hold it, if I do not hold it, of course nobody else is going to hold it for us. And it means a multi-dimensional foreign policy, not just on the Cyprus question alone, which is a do-or-die issue for us, but also on the other things that our diplomacy is known for, including the Commonwealth, #our Commonwealth. And that was a good part of the day today, and then other things that followed, and that's why I am late. The relationship between Cyprus and the United Kingdom is an umbilical relationship. Brexit or no Brexit, yes, the dreaded B word, the relations will continue. They'll continue in trade, in tourism, in people to people, of the many, many UK Cypriots that are here in this country, yourselves included, of the students, and of course the 60, 70 or so British citizens that live in Cyprus. So let's go forward. Let's go forward with tenacity and perseverance. Let's have faith into the future. Let's have faith into our people. Let's have faith into the rule of law, because that is what is required of all of us to do our share. It was Socrates that was asked about the meaning of life. His wife, her name was Xanthippe. Mr. Michalis Elinas may correct me if I'm wrong, because he's the teacher. She was kicking him because she said, "You're no good. You always come in the agora and you philosophize and you don't bring any food, you don't bring..." So the students were laughing at him. And he was asked about the meaning of life, to which he said, "To be a good Athenian citizen." And what does it mean to be a good Athenian citizen? And his answer was simple but straightforward: to leave Athens better than you have found it. And Athens, my friends and brothers and colleagues and distinguished members of parliament, Athens for us is London. Athens for us is Nicosia. Athens for us is everywhere our rich and vibrant diaspora is. To make the place where we live a better place. Better place for our beloved Cyprus, but a better place where you live here. To be extroverts, to go out and, I don't want to say preach the gospel, because it sounds like spiritual. But yes, say the truth and puzzle those that hear it. In this day and age of alternative facts, fake news, I am often at pains to explain that despite our faults, and we have plenty, we did not invade ourselves. I'm sorry. It is an invasion, it is an occupation, it is violation of human rights. So what we want is nothing more and nothing less, not as hyphenated Cypriots, but first allegiance to Cyprus as a state of all, irrespective of their ethnic background. Sir Roger said, since I'm going to be the last, I'm the one that is preventing you from going to the reception and to going to the meal. I'm cognizant of the fact that a short speech moves the heart and a long speech moves chairs. And I'm cognizant of the fact that speeches should be done on an empty stomach and a full bladder. So allow me, from the bottom of my heart, to say to the distinguished members of parliament that have supported democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, not just Cyprus, but all these things related to these lofty ideals, to you, to each and every one of you, that you are here, and your presence is a testament about your interest, because you could have done something else. And we know who's playing today in the football, France and Belgium, there. That's what you've been doing. Instead of listening to me, you have been, thank you very much, Mr. Greek. I mean, that sounds, anyhow, I wish each and every one, exactly. I want to thank the Minister Prodromou, and I want to apologize to him for not being with him constantly, but in his presence here, I know that this area is covered. So I was covering something else. To each and every one of you, health, happiness, prosperity, every success, and have faith. We may disagree. When we talk among ourselves and with our Turkish Cypriot brothers and with everybody, we may disagree about the history of the past. But I want us to agree about the history of the future. And it is the future is one in unity, not in fragmentation, not in any apartheid or neo-apartheid systems, on those three principles that we talked about. Bless you, Κάθε καλόν, υγεία, χαράν, μακροημέρευση, σας εύχομαι ό,τι καλά του Θεού. I hope everything good comes on your way. Health, happiness, prosperity, every success to the Roger Gale dynasty as well. How many grandchildren? And thank you very, very much. God bless.